Canoopsy here, and is the new Moto Z2 Play a worthy upgrade over last year's Moto Z Play? Let's find out. First of all, what is definitely an upgrade is the design. Instead of the glass back from last year, which scratched very easily and didn't actually look that great, this phone now has a full metal body, and it's also a bit thinner too, while still being water resistant, having a headphone jack, and having an SD card slot. I think this new design looks really awesome, and the phone for sure feels much higher quality and is much closer to the Moto Z. One negative though is the camera sticks out more because of this thickness, so it kinda rocks on a table. No one really asked for the Moto Z Play to get any thinner, and as a result of this you actually get less battery capacity and the phone is a bit harder to hold. But the fingerprint scanner here is definitely much bigger and is still very fast. You also still get the front-facing speaker here too, and speaking of speakers, this phone can still use all the Moto mods from last year and new Moto mods like the JBL Sound Boost 2 that Motorola also sent out. It does pick up a lot of dust and stuff, but still it is much better than last year's and has awesome sound quality while now also being water resistant. Okay, speaker test. So this is the speaker in the Moto Z2 Play. It's pretty good, it's front facing, but it's not that great compared to the JBL Sound Boost 2. Let's play a quick track and see what it sounds like. Moto Z2 Play, front facing speaker, full volume. And now with the Moto mod. It's like night and day difference. But one thing I have noticed, and a few others have noticed as well, is that Moto mods kind of wobble a bit on the back of this phone. They still stick on perfectly no problem, but you can definitely shift them around a little bit. Now, moving to the display, you still have that really great 5.5-inch 1080p AMOLED panel, and honestly, it is awesome. Colors are punchy, vibrant, and bold, and contrast is outstandingly good, like the nav bar basically blends into the bezel. It might just be me, but it also looks brighter than last year's phone as well. There's also a pretty great active display mode that activates when you take it out of your pocket, lift it up, or wave your hand on top of it, and it's pretty useful. Basically, this phone's display is one of my favorite displays on any phone today, and it's very impressive. Specifications have also changed since last year's phone, now with the new and a bit more power efficient Snapdragon 626 processor, plus there's 1GB more RAM. At this point in time, this phone honestly flies in terms of daily performance. All the apps that I use daily work perfectly fine on this phone, and even doing more intensive things like split-screen multitasking and gaming, there's really no problems at all. For more intensive games with a whole bunch of elements, there can be a slight drop in frames, but mostly you get great performance here. But overall, compared to the speed of the Z Play from last year, it's about the same overall speed and performance. The Z2 plays a bit faster when it comes to dashing through applications, doing graphically intensive things, and because of the more RAM, it can definitely juggle some more tasks. But really the performance is actually very close between these two phones. This great performance is also likely due to the very stock-like software, which is Motorola's philosophy for software. It's Android 7.1.1, and it's a mix of both stock Android and the Pixel launcher in terms of the overall style. The icons are all rounded, and there's a whole bunch of other great touches built into the software, and some really awesome Motorola wallpapers, so great job Motorola, great job. There's also all of Motorola's great gesture and voice features, and a lot of them are very useful and really great to have on a phone. All in all, Motorola's take on Android software is still a very tasteful Android modification while still being awesome. People were also pretty worried about the 500 mAh reduction in battery capacity from last year, and it's safe to say battery life hasn't really suffered too much. Because of Motorola's many optimizations plus the more efficient processor, a full day of usage in a few hours the next day is definitely achievable for most users, even if you're a light to medium to slightly heavier user. And something I'm really happy that Motorola finally did was include a wall USB-C charger and cable that can actually separate, so thank you Motorola, it just took you forever. The final change here is the camera. The Z2 Play now has a 12 megapixel camera down from 16 megapixels and a 5 megapixel front camera, but now with an f2 aperture compared to an f2.2 aperture from last year. Plus it has a dual LED flash. The rear camera here is quite awesome. Both outdoors and indoors expect great overall results. In some situations, the camera tends to overexpose some areas when there's a lot of light, but mostly you get some nice vibrant, contrasty shots. There can be some grain and blur in low light, but you definitely have to hold still and you can get some very usable results. But once again, these results still look very similar to the Moto Z Play from last year. Now, Motorola claims shots on the new Z Play are a bit brighter, but in my opinion they're just very close overall. "4K video is generally quite pleasing, but if I'm nitpicking, color accuracy and overall stabilization could be a bit better." Okay, so in summary, is the Moto Z2 Play worth it? Well, it definitely has a few good specification bumps and a few other changes from last year, but nothing really too drastic or major. Now, for the pricing, it's $500 US and $800 Canadian, so it's definitely getting up there in price. If you're still looking at the Z2 Play from this year, I definitely recommend taking a look at the Z Play from last year. They're still very close phones overall, they still perform quite similarly, the cameras are both quite similar too, and you can use all the Moto mods here as well. The design is still great, the battery life is awesome on this phone. The only thing you're really missing out on is the newer design, the newer fingerprint scanner, all that kind of stuff, the new specifications, but besides that, the phones are still incredibly close overall, so definitely look at last year's first before buying the Z2 Play. While this phone is definitely a great overall device in all of the key areas that matter, for $500 it's definitely getting a bit hard to recommend this phone, especially considering the great state of the mid-range smartphone market and amazingly affordable phones like the OnePlus 5 for almost the same price as this phone. So that's really it for this video. It's a great overall device, but it's getting a bit up there in price. That wasn't supposed to rhyme, but it did. Like this video if you liked it, comment down below your thoughts on the Moto Z2 Play, subscribe, and thank you for watching. Of the release of the original iPhone.